Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our NFL predictions with Week 5. And last week, I went 10-6. And disclaimer, I did change one of my picks last week. And that was the Ravens and Browns. Once I found out Deshaun Watson was out, I went ahead and flipped my pick to the Ravens. So I could have went 9-7. Which puts my total season record at 41-23. Now, for this week, it's the start of the bye week. So before we jump into these predictions, a reminder that the Los Angeles Chargers, the Seattle Seahawks, the Cleveland Browns, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all have bye weeks this week. And unfortunately, the team that I want to have a bye week doesn't, and that's the Chicago Bears taking on the Washington Commanders. If you remember last year when these two teams played, they played in one of the worst Thursday night games ever. But anyway, both these teams last week had almost won. The Bears, they blew a 28-7 lead over the Broncos, and it was all because of an idiotic decision by their coach, Matt Eberflus. And as for Washington, they had a late rally against the Philadelphia Eagles, but unfortunately, a late controversial but yet somewhat correct call cost them the game. I don't care what you say, Terry McLaurin's foot was out of bounds as much as I wanted it to be in bounds. The Bears, they're terrible by far. Matt Eberflus should have been fired after this game, but I get why he wasn't. You don't want a new coach to be coaching right into a short week. If you want to fire him, do it after this game if they lose. 14 straight games. Do I hear 15? Do I hear 15? Yes, I do. I'm going to pick the Commanders to bounce back against the Chicago Bears. If they played like they played against the Eagles last week, oh yeah, this might be a long game for these guys. And then we have another London game this week where the Jacksonville Jaguars will take on the Buffalo Bills in London. And I think the venue is Tottenham Stadium. I don't know what it's called, whatever. But Jacksonville, they bounced back against the Falcons, even if their red zone problems is still apparent. And the Bills, they put the NFL on notice by not only beating the Dolphins but destroying them 48-20 thanks to Stephon Diggs. I think this game, well, Jacksonville, here's a first. Yes, Jacksonville's playing both back-to-back games in London, but this for the first time they're designated as the road team this year. So that's interesting. But anyway, as for a winner, I'm going to go with the Bills. I do think the Bills are one of the best teams. Despite all the injuries they have, they're still better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now on to the Sunday games proper. We have the Houston Texans traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. The Texans, man, they look like a really good. Already seeing the DeMeco Ryans culture fitting in because not only did they beat the Steelers, they pretty much destroyed a veteran team like they have. And the Falcons, yeah, another game where they scored less than 10 points. And many people are beginning to question, like, Desmond Ridder, he might not be it. But luckily, this game is back in Atlanta. The only games that the Falcons won has been when we're at home. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with this one because I think this game could go in any direction. But given that the Texans have a lot of momentum, I'm going to go with the hot team. Houston, I think Houston's going to win this game. Next we have is the Detroit Lions hosting the Carolina Panthers. The Lions coming off a Thursday night win over their division rival Green Bay Packers. And the Carolina Panthers, yeah, they lost to the Vikings and they look horrible. Even though I'll say this much, That game was a winnable game for them, but bad offensive play calling it basically is weighing this team down. Come on, Frank Wright, let Bryce Young cook. You see all these other rookie QBs doing what they're doing. Why you're holding back Bryce Young? But anyway, yeah, this one's no doubt in my mind Detroit's gonna win this game. They're the far better team. And Panthers, I'm starting to have my doubts if they're even gonna win one. Next we have is the Tennessee Titans taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Titans, a couple weeks ago they lost 27-3 to the Browns. Last week they won 27-3 against the Bengals. That's kind of odd, but hey, they won. Meanwhile, the Colts, they rallied behind a 23-0 deficit to take the Rams to overtime, but unfortunately they came up short. But I will say I am liking what the Colts are doing. I think this game, well, history shows that the Titans have done historically well in Lucas Oil Stadium as of recent. And while I do want to pick the Colts, especially if Jonathan Taylor can return, I gotta go with the Titans to win this one. Because as I trust their defense more than I trust the Colts offense. Next we have, oh boy, the New York Giants and the Miami Dolphins. And the Miami Dolphins, they're going to definitely win this game. They're going to mop the floor of the New York Giants. Followed that up with another bad game. The New Orleans Saints taking on the New England Patriots. New England Patriots, less said about y'all game, the better. Meanwhile, the Saints, they did not look prepared, they did not look ready, and they did not look good against the Buccaneers at home. They're 2-2, but they're not a good 2-2. Offensively, they're still having problems on that side of the ball. Defensively, they're going to be just fine. And because of that, I really don't know who to choose for this game. And as much as I want to, but let's face it, New England is not a good team. I'm actually going to pick the Saints to win on the road, but I will not be surprised if New England wins. Next we have is the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. The Steelers, yeah, they did not look good against the Texans. And Kenny Pickett, he's likely going to be out for this game due to a knee injury that Steelers have not specified what it was. At least it wasn't an ACL injury. Meanwhile, the injury-riddled Ravens, listen, they're getting it done. And I gotta give them props for that. They have a bunch of injuries on their team, but yet they're finding ways to win games. And last week against the Cleveland Browns was no different. And I gotta give credit to John Harbaugh for having his boys prepared. Because with the amount of injuries the Ravens have, they should pack the season up. But that team kept fighting, and I gotta give them my props to the Ravens. And because of that, and the fact that the Steelers will not have Kenny Pickett, I am going to pick the Baltimore Ravens to win. For some reason, they're the best team in their division. I don't know how we got to that point, but there you go. And on to the 4 o'clock games, we have the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The Eagles, yep, they escaped against the Washington Commanders in overtime. It was an offensively good game for both squads on that field. Meanwhile, the Rams, they nearly blew a 23-0 lead against the Colts. Thanks to Puka Nacua, he saved the Colts' tail and got the win. But one thing I found out about the Eagles is, yes, they're still one of the best teams in the league, but they've been playing with fire this season. Because week 1, they barely escaped the Patriots. Week 2, I mean, yes, they beat the Vikings, but the Vikings score made it closer than what you think. And then the Buccaneers, okay, at least they took care of them. I think, and you know what? And as for the Rams, they're gritty too. They had a lot of close games. But again, I don't know. They're Rams in an odd spate. But because of the Eagles have been playing with fire, I think I have my upset of the week. If Aaron Donald can have his dominant game, he has, I'm going to go with the Rams to win. I think the Eagles playing with fire is going to catch up to them, and they probably will drop their first game this week. Next we have is the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Arizona Cardinals. And if this was the preseason and I was doing my off-season individual team predictions, this would be a bloodbath. But looking into this week, it's going to be much closer than what people think. Well, for the Cardinals, yes, they lost to the 49ers, but defensively, I like what I like what they're doing on that side of the ball. They're trying. As for the Bengals, panic has set in. Joe Burrow, as I said before, he's not healthy. He should not be playing. But yet, Zach Taylor and Mike Brown wants to keep him out there because it gives them the best chance to win. And I'm not gonna lie, I questioned I almost took I questioned on taking the Arizona Cardinals to win this game. Now, this will be a game I think that the Bengals offensive line will struggle against. But if Joe Burrow, but I don't know. This one's really tough. Tougher to pick than what you think. And do I go with another upset at home? I could, but I'm gonna play it safe because at least the Bengals still got a defense. I think that's gonna have to carry them throughout the season. So I gotta go with Cincinnati, but I won't be surprised if Arizona wins. Next, we have the New York Jets taking on the Denver Broncos. Broncos, y'all won a game. Y'all rallied from a 28-7 deficit to beat the Chicago Bears. Should that count for anything? Maybe. Meanwhile, for the Jets, listen, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs off of BS pass interference call on Sauce Gardner, and the fact that they swiftly got taken out. I know there's some bad blood there, but the Jets, they actually played a pretty good game. I thought Zach Wilson looked I thought Zach Wilson looked pretty solid. I think I do believe he's getting some of his confidence in. But for this game, now off-season wise, let me say this. Off-season wise, there's been a lot of trash talk between these two teams. If you don't remember, Sean Payton called out Nathaniel Hackett, and Hackett he actually responded to Sean Payton. So I do believe that these two teams are going to have a lot of bad blood against each other. This might be the best 1-3 matchup we're going to have this week. I'm going to pick the New York Jets to win on the road because I feel like they're due for a win. And I believe if Zach Wilson plays like what he plays and lean towards his running game, I think the running game will get going against the Broncos. I believe the Jets will. I believe the Jets could probably win this game. And I also want to see Sean Payton keep his mouth shut for once. Next we have is the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. Vikings won their first game against Carolina despite not having a really great day on offensively. Literally, their offense was just Justin Jefferson and little else that week. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs, they won in the road against the New York Giants. What else is new? I believe this game, I think this one will be closer than what people think. Especially if the Vikings offense get things going. But because I do believe the Chiefs defense is pretty good, I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Minnesota Vikings. And do I have a Taylor Swift pun to put in for this week? I don't. Move on. And then we have a heavyweight matchup this week. The Dallas Cowboys traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. The Cowboys, they've annihilated the New England Patriots, giving Belichick his worst loss in his coaching career. And it was mostly rallied on their defense scoring 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, the 49ers basically rode Christian McCaffrey to their win. Nothing more, nothing less against the Arizona Cardinals. This game will be perfect to tell us where the Cowboys are, because if you look at the teams that they played, all of them currently have a 1-3 record. And they lost to one of those teams, being the Arizona Cardinals. So they have not played any true competition yet this week. The Niners will be the perfect test. They're still unbeaten. And when I was doing when I was watching a lot of pregame hype for this one, all eyes was on Dak Prescott. Because remember, the last 2 years, he could not get it done against the 49ers defense. And he was heavily criticized, and rightfully so, that he can't get it done. Do I think this will be the case? I do expect a low-scoring game. I expect a good game. But I am going to go with the 49ers at home. I just trust them at home to get it done. And Brock Purdy, he'll still be unbeaten as a starter. And finally, we have Monday Night Football, where the Green Bay Packers take on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders did not have Jimmy Garoppolo in because he had a concussion. Aiden O'Connell was the starter, and oh boy, he was wearing Khalil Mack throughout the entire day, and I felt bad for the kid. Meanwhile, Green Bay, it was no contest against the Detroit Lions, and I can't believe I'm saying that about Green Bay. Raiders, let's face it, they're not a good team. They're not a well-coached team. Josh McDaniels, he's a noob. And I'm going to keep this very brief. I am going to take the Green Bay Packers to win, because they're a better coached team. I think Jordan Love, he will bounce back against this very bad Raiders defense. And Raiders, faster y'all get rid of Josh McDaniels, the better. So anyway, tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.